Good morning, Los Angeles. This is Alex coming to you live from, well, not exactly my usual studio. For those of you who can somehow hear this broadcast, you already know we're in deep trouble. It's been 3 days since everything went dark. 3 days since our world changed forever. I'm broadcasting on an emergency frequency using equipment I installed in my Fallout shelter years ago. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but I need to document what's happening. I need to believe someone is listening. Let me start from the beginning. 3 days ago, I was doing my regular morning show at KLAX, Rise and Shine with Alex, the same show I've hosted for 11 years now. The news cycle had been brutal for weeks. Escalating tensions with China, cyber attacks targeting our infrastructure, diplomatic relations deteriorating by the hour. I remember joking on air about stocking up on canned goods, trying to lighten the mood, while secretly wondering if I should be adding more supplies to my own shelter. I had Senator Williams on the line, discussing the latest round of failed negotiations. The American people need to understand, he was saying, that we are taking every possible diplomatic approach. But China's recent military posturing in the South China Sea suggests. That's when it happened. Mid-sentence, everything just stopped. The studio went completely dark. My producer Janine was gesturing wildly through the glass, but I couldn't hear her through my headphones anymore. I assumed it was a power outage, nothing we hadn't dealt with before. The backup generators would kick in any second, but they didn't. I stepped out of the booth, and that's when I realized this wasn't just our building. Looking through the window, I could see the entire downtown skyline had gone dark, not a single light, and the streets below were already filling with stalled cars. My phone's dead, Janine said, frantically pressing buttons. Completely dead. And my watch stopped too. That's when Brad from the tech department burst in. It's everything, he said, out of breath. Nothing electronic is working. The station van won't start. It's like something fried all the circuits. EMP. The word hung in the air without anyone needing to say it. Electromagnetic pulse. The thing preppers and military analysts had warned about for years. The ultimate first strike in modern warfare, rendering all electronics useless in an instant. I remember standing there for a moment, watching as the realization spread across my colleagues' faces. This wasn't a temporary outage. This wasn't something that would be fixed in a few hours. Our world had just fundamentally changed. I need to get home, I said finally. We all do. The walk from downtown to my place in Silver Lake would normally take about 2 hours. That day, it took me nearly 5. The streets were gridlocked with dead vehicles. People were abandoning their cars in the middle of lanes, carrying whatever they could. I saw a woman in business attire walking in heels, with a potted plant from her office. Strange the things we choose to save. By noon, the looting had already started. I passed a Target where people were streaming in and out with armfuls of supplies. No police in sight. No sirens. No emergency response of any kind. Just people taking what they needed, or thought they needed. Water, food, batteries that would never work again. The most unsettling thing was the sky. Los Angeles without air traffic is eerily quiet. No planes, no helicopters. Just birds and the growing sound of human panic. There were rumors spreading through the crowds. Whispers about planes falling from the sky when the pulse hit. About hospital patients on life support. About nuclear plants going critical without their cooling systems. I tried not to listen. I focused on getting home, on the fact that I had prepared for this. Not perfectly, not completely, but better than most. The fallout shelter beneath my basement had started as a quirky hobby after I did a segment on doomsday preppers 7 years ago. Over time, it became a serious investment, partly out of genuine concern, partly to have interesting content for the show. Alex's Apocalypse Corner had been a Friday segment for years. Listeners would call in with disaster scenarios, and I'd rate my chances of survival. I never thought I'd actually need it. When I finally reached my neighborhood, things were still relatively calm. People were gathered on porches, sharing information, making community plans. Mrs. Ramirez from 2 doors down spotted me and waved. "Alex, thank God you're okay. Do you know what's happening?" I explained what I knew, which wasn't much. An electromagnetic pulse had disabled everything with electronic components. Could be an attack from China given the tensions. Could be a solar flare, though that seemed less likely given the perfect timing. Either way, we were looking at weeks, possibly months, without power, communications, or transportation. What about the government? The military? Someone asked. I didn't have an answer. In theory, certain military equipment is hardened against EMP attacks. In practice, who knows what was still operational or how long it would take for any kind of organized response to reach us. After checking that my neighbors had basic supplies and plans to share resources, I made my way home. My house looked untouched, thankfully. I locked the door behind me, pulled the blackout curtains closed, and headed straight for the basement. The entrance to my shelter is hidden behind a false wall of storage boxes. Actually empty plastic containers weighted with the sand. I slid them aside, unlocked the reinforced door, and stepped inside. My shelter isn't impressive by doomsday prepper standards. About 200 square feet, with supplies to last me 3 months if I'm careful. The real prize was my radio equipment. I'd installed an old tube-based ham radio system that wouldn't be affected by an EMP, powered by a hand-cranked generator and connected to an antenna I could extend above the house. It was meant to be a last resort communication method, a way to receive emergency broadcasts if everything else failed. Now it was the only way I might reach anyone. I spent that first evening setting up the equipment, extending the antenna through a pre-installed pipe that ran up through the house and onto the roof. I had no idea if anyone else had similar equipment, if anyone would be broadcasting, or if anyone would be listening, but I had to try. That night, I slept in the shelter, on the narrow cot against the wall. The silence was overwhelming. No hum of electronics, no distant traffic, just the occasional shout from outside or the sound of breaking glass. Los Angeles was slowly coming to terms with its new reality. The next morning, yesterday, I began my first broadcast. This is Alex Marshall, former host of Rise and Shine with Alex on KLX Radio, broadcasting on emergency frequency 7.5 megahertz. If anyone can hear this, what we experienced was an electromagnetic pulse, likely a coordinated attack given the current tensions with China. All electronic devices without specific EMP shielding have been disabled. This includes vehicles, phones, computers, and the power grid itself. I paused, listening to the static, wondering if my words were simply evaporating into the ether. I'm broadcasting from my personal fallout shelter in the Silver Lake area of Los Angeles. I have limited supplies, but am secure for now. If you can hear this and have the means to respond, please do. Otherwise, I'll continue broadcasting updates as I learn them, and sharing what survival information I can. Throughout that day, I ventured outside several times, cautiously observing what was happening in my neighborhood. The sense of community I'd seen the previous afternoon was already fraying. A fight broke out over bottled water at what remained of the corner store. 2 men came to blows over a package of batteries, not realizing they were useless now. The most alarming thing was the complete absence of emergency services. No police, no fire department, no ambulances. A house 3 blocks away caught fire, and people formed a bucket brigade to put it out, drawing water from swimming pools. It was both terrifying and inspiring. The realization that we were truly on our own, coupled with the immediate human instinct to work together. Last night was worse than the first. Gunshots in the distance. More fires. A woman's scream that went on for far too long before being suddenly cut off. I stayed in my shelter, broadcasting intermittently, sharing what I knew about purifying water, rationing food, treating basic injuries. Basic survival information that suddenly seemed like the most important knowledge in the world. This morning, day 3, I ventured out again at dawn. That's when I saw them. Military personnel, but not in the vehicles you'd expect. They were on horseback, armed with rifles, moving slowly down Sunset Boulevard. Smart. Horses don't need electronics to function. I approached cautiously, identified myself as a broadcaster with a working radio. The sergeant in charge, a woman named Reyes, gave me what little information she had. The EMP had been comprehensive, affecting most of the continental United States. Their base had lost almost all equipment except for some specialized communications gear. They were operating on contingency plans, trying to establish secure zones, but they were severely undermanned and under-equipped. What about Washington? I asked. The government, scattered, was all she would say. Communication is minimal. Chain of command is being reconstructed. Before riding off, she told me to keep broadcasting. People need information more than anything right now, she said. They need to know they're not alone. So that's what I'm doing. Broadcasting into the void, hoping someone is listening. The Los Angeles I knew 3 days ago is gone. In its place is something raw, primitive, frightening. The veneer of civilization is being stripped away hour by hour. From what I can see from my cautious excursions, people are dividing into 3 groups. The first are those who prepared, who have supplies and are hunkering down, waiting for some kind of restoration of order. The second are those who refuse to believe this could happen, who are still in shock, wandering around expecting things to somehow return to normal. The third, and this group is growing, are those who have quickly adapted to this new world of scarcity, who are taking what they need by whatever means necessary. I've seen neighbors who used to exchange pleasantries now threatening each other over cans of food. I've seen impromptu markets springing up where people barter goods, water for medicine, food for protection. I've seen kindness too. People sharing what little they have, caring for the elderly and vulnerable. Human nature contains multitudes, and all of it is on display now that the systems that regulated our behavior have fallen away. The most bizarre sight today was a group of teenagers using skateboards to transport water containers down from the hills. Adaptation. It's happening faster than I would have thought possible. Already new systems are emerging from the chaos. What worries me most is what comes next. The food in stores will be gone within days. If it isn't already, municipal water systems will fail without power to run the pumps. Disease will spread as sanitation breaks down. And winter is coming. Not the harsh winters of the Midwest or East Coast, but cold enough to be dangerous without heating. I'm telling you all of this not to spread fear, but because knowledge is power. We need to be realistic about what we're facing. This isn't a temporary inconvenience. This is a fundamental reset of our society. Everything we took for granted is gone, and there's no clear timeline for when, or if, it will return. So what do? We survive. Day by day, we help each other when we can. We protect what's ours when we must. We remember what it means to be human in a world that's suddenly much larger, much darker, and much more dangerous than it was 3 days ago. I'll continue broadcasting as long as I can, twice daily at dawn and dusk. If you can hear me, you're not alone. If you have information to share, find a way to get it to me. My location is, wait, there's someone at my door. I can hear them trying the handle. I need to. This is Alex Marshall, signing off for now. Stay safe. Stay human. I'll broadcast again when I can. This is Alex Marshall, broadcasting again on emergency frequency 7.5 megahertz. It's been 5 days since the blackout. If you heard my last transmission, you know I had an unexpected visitor. For those just tuning in, if anyone is even out there, I'll catch you up quickly. The knocking at my door turned out to be Elaine, my next door neighbor. She was frantic, clutching her 7-year-old daughter Maya's hand. They were fleeing from a group of men who had broken into their home looking for supplies. I let them in, hid them in my shelter, and we waited in darkness for hours until we were certain the danger had passed. They're staying with me now. It seems cruel to turn away a mother and child in times like these, even if it means my supplies won't last as long. Last night, I ventured outside again after ensuring Elaine and Maya were secure in the shelter. The Los Angeles skyline has never looked so dark, so foreign. The only lights visible were scattered fires burning across the city. Some small, controlled blazes where people were cooking or trying to stay warm. Others massive infernos where entire buildings had been set ablaze. Without functioning fire departments, each one burns until it runs out of fuel. The air smells different now. No vehicle emissions, no industrial output, but new scents have replaced them. Wood smoke, decay. Fear has a smell. Did you know that? It's sore primal. It hangs in the air around groups of people now. I made my way carefully toward Sunset Junction, staying in shadows, avoiding the main streets. What I saw there confirms my worst fears about how quickly society can unravel. A makeshift market has formed in the intersection, lit by torches and candles. People barter desperately for essentials. Water purification tablets, medication, ammunition, preserved food. I saw a man trade a gold watch for 4 cans of beans. I saw another offer a full bottle of whiskey for a box of antibiotics. His child was sick, he said. No one had the medicine to trade. The market operates under the protection of what I can only describe as a newly formed militia. Former security guards, a couple of off-duty cops, and some opportunists with guns and a desire for control. They take a tax from each transaction. Protection money, essentially, and those who refuse to pay find themselves unable to trade at all. I approached cautiously, seeking information more than goods. Through careful conversations, I learned more about what's happening beyond my neighborhood. The situation downtown is dire. The financial district has been thoroughly looted. Hospitals ran on emergency generators for the first day until fuel supplies were exhausted. Now, patients who couldn't be moved have largely died. Medical professionals are scattered, some trying to establish clinics in community centers, others hoarding their knowledge and supplies for family and friends. The ports are under military control. What remains of it? The horseback patrols I saw earlier are indeed U.S. Army, operating under severely limited capacity. Without vehicles or electronic communications, they've reverted to techniques from another century. Runners carry messages between outposts. Lookouts are positioned on tall buildings, using mirrors to flash coded communications during daylight hours. But their control is tenuous at best. For every street they patrol, 20 more are left to fend for themselves. And in that vacuum, new power structures are emerging. I overheard whispers about territory being claimed by various groups. Former gang affiliations are being replaced by new alliances, based on who has what resources and who can protect them. The man who owns a warehouse full of bottled water suddenly has more power than the Hollywood executive who lived in a hillside mansion. The urban farmer with a rooftop vegetable garden has become more valuable than the tech entrepreneur with millions in digital currency that no longer exists. After gathering what information I could, I traded one of my spare hand crank flashlights for a gallon of water and some antibiotics, insurance in case any of us falls ill. The transaction earned me dark looks from the security personnel, who clearly marked me as someone with valuable resources. I won't be returning to that market soon. The walk home was tense. I took a different route, doubling back several times to ensure I wasn't followed. Paranoid, perhaps, but paranoia might be what keeps us alive in this new world. When I returned to the shelter, Elaine had prepared a small meal from my supplies. Carefully measured portions of rice and canned vegetables, heated over the small propane camping stove I keep for emergencies. We ate in near silence, the only sound Maya's occasional questions about when things would go back to normal. And neither of us had the heart to tell her they might never do so. After they fell asleep, I sat by my radio equipment, scanning frequencies, listening for any other broadcasts. The airwaves are mostly silent now. Occasionally, I pick up fragments. Someone calling for help, someone listing resources available for trade, someone simply crying into a microphone until the transmission cuts out. Each voice a reminder that we're not alone in this collapse, but each one also so distant, so unreachable. This morning, I was awakened by distant gunfire, not the sporadic shots of previous days, but sustained exchanges. A battle being fought somewhere to the east. through my periscope, a simple device I installed to observe the street from the safety of my shelter. I could see black smoke rising from the direction of the conflict. I decided to broadcast again, to share what I know, in case it helps even one person survive another day. For those of you listening, here's what I've learned about our current situation. The EMP attack appears to have been precisely targeted to maximize disruption. Everything with a microchip or advanced circuitry is dead. This includes all modern vehicles, cell phones, computers, and the entire power grid. Some simpler electronic devices, those built before the microchip revolution, might still function if they weren't connected to the grid during the pulse. Water systems are failing as municipal pumps lose power. If you haven't already, fill every container you have with water immediately. A human can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. Learn to purify what you can find. Boiling works if you have the means. Otherwise, exposure to direct sunlight in a clear container for 6 hours can kill many pathogens. Food is the next concern. Refrigeration is gone, so perishables will spoil quickly. Canned goods, dry staples like rice and beans, and preserved foods will become the most valuable currency in the coming weeks. If you have seeds, plant them immediately. Even a small garden can supplement your diet when supplies run low. Medical care is perhaps the most critical gap. Without hospitals, even minor injuries or illnesses can become fatal. Keep wounds clean. Boil water for sterilization. Know which common plants in your area have medicinal properties. If you have prescription medications, ration them carefully. For those with conditions requiring consistent medication, insulin, heart medications, antipsychotics, I have no good answers. Seek out healthcare professionals who might have access to supplies. As for safety, travel in groups when possible. Avoid being out after dark. Make your home look already scavenged from the outside if you can. The less you appear to have, the less likely you are to become a target. Those are the basics. But there's another element to survival that's becoming increasingly clear: community. Those who band together, who pool resources and skills, who take turns keeping watch and caring for the vulnerable. They're faring better than lone individuals, no matter how well those individuals prepared. I've been thinking about this as I observe from my shelter. My preparation has given me an advantage, yes. But for how long can one person alone sustain themselves? Eventually, supplies run out. Eventually, illness or injury strikes. Eventually, the psychological toll of isolation becomes its own threat. That's why I've let Elaine and Maya stay. Not just from compassion, though that played a part, but from practicality. Elaine was a nurse before the blackout. Her knowledge might save my life someday. And even young Maya serves as a lookout sometimes, her keen eyes spotting movements I might miss. This afternoon, we ventured out together to check on other neighbors. The street has changed dramatically in just 5 days. Some houses stand empty, their owners either fled or dead. Others have been fortified, windows boarded, makeshift barricades erected. A few have become miniature communities with multiple families combining resources. Mrs. Ramirez, the elderly woman who lived 2 doors down, was found dead in her kitchen. Natural causes, it seemed. A heart attack, perhaps, or simply the shock and stress of everything that's happened. We buried her in her garden, beneath the orange tree she was so proud of. No priest, no service, just 3 people with a shovel and the unspoken understanding that this might become routine. Her home had already been picked clean by scavengers. Nothing valuable remained except a few family photographs we placed with her in the shallow grave. Strange, the sentimentality that persists even now. On our way back, we encountered a group of teenagers who used to hang out at the skate park on Sunset. They've repurposed skateboards as transportation devices, using them to carry scavenged goods and messages between different neighborhood groups. Smart adaptation. They told us that a community center has been established at the local high school. People with the skills, carpent doctors, former military, are gathering there, organizing, planning. I'm considering making contact, offering my broadcasting equipment as a communication tool. but I'm hesitant. Every person who knows about my shelter, my supplies, my capabilities, represents a potential threat. Trust is a luxury that few can afford anymore. As dusk approaches, new sounds fill the air. Cooking fires being lit, murmured conversations on porches, someone playing an acoustic guitar a few houses down. The tinny sound of a hand cranked radio scanning for signals, perhaps searching for this very broadcast. There are moments, brief ones, when it almost feels like we're camping, like this is a temporary adventure rather than our new reality. Then something happens to shatter the illusion. A distant scream. The smell of human waste from overtaxed sewage systems. The persistent gnaw of hunger that never quite goes away no matter how carefully we ration our meals. Wait. Elaine is signaling me. Someone's approaching the house. I'm back. That was unexpected. A man named Curtis from 3 streets over. He's been listening to my broadcasts on an old ham radio set. He came to warn us that a group has been systematically moving through the neighborhood, house by house, taking whatever they want. They'll reach us by tomorrow or the next day. Curtis is organizing an evacuation of those who want to leave, heading toward the high school community center I mentioned earlier. Safety in numbers. He says they have a perimeter guards, some semblance of organization. It might be our best chance. So now we face a choice. Stay here in this shelter I've built, with supplies that might last weeks, if we're careful, or abandon it for the uncertainty of a larger group, where resources might be more strained but protection more robust. Elaine wants to go. For Maya's sake, she says. Children need other children. They need some semblance of normalcy, of community, and she's right. I know she's right. But leaving means giving up the one advantage I had in this new world. My preparation, my foresight. I've spent the last hour arguing with myself, weighing options, calculating risks. In the old world, I was the voice people listened to for entertainment, for company during their morning commute. Now, I might be one of the only voices left on the airwaves, and the weight of that responsibility feels crushing. If I go, I'll try to bring the essential broadcasting equipment. It's heavy, it will slow us down, make us targets. But communication is too valuable to abandon entirely. For those listening, if my broadcast stops abruptly, you'll know why. We've either been forced to flee or, well, the alternative doesn't bear thinking about. Before I sign off, one last observation, one that keeps me awake at night. We're only 5 days into this blackout. 5 days since our technology failed us. 5 days since the thin veneer of civilization began to crack. What will 5 weeks look like? 5 months? Will we adapt, create new systems, rebuild some version of society? Or will we continue this descent, fighting over dwindling resources until only the most ruthless remain? I want to believe in humanity's resilience. I want to believe we're more than our technology, more than our comforts and conveniences. History tells us humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars that decimated continents. We can survive this too. But history also tells us the path through such calamities is never without immense suffering. We stand at the beginning of that path now, its length and difficulty still unknown. For those listening who still have some kind of faith, pray for us. For those without faith, then keep a small flame of hope alive. Not hope that things will return to what they were. That seems increasingly unlikely. But hope that what emerges from this darkness might still contain compassion, cooperation, and the best aspects of our nature. I'll broadcast again if I can, either from here or wherever we end up. Until then, this is Alex Marshall. Stay safe, human. Stay alive. This is Alex Marshall broadcasting on emergency frequency 7.5 MHz. Day 12 since the blackout. If anyone is still listening out there, this might be my last transmission for a while. We left the shelter. We had to. The group Curtis warned us about. They call themselves the Collectors. They hit the house next to mine 2 days after my last broadcast. We watched through the periscope as they systematically stripped it of everything useful. They were organized, methodical. 5 men, 3 women, all armed, working with the efficiency of people who've done this many times already. They didn't just take supplies. They took doors, pipes, wiring, anything metal, anything that could be repurposed. When they finished, one of them looked directly at my house and made a slashing motion across his throat to another. They knew I was here. They knew about my broadcasts. I was a target. We left that night, taking only what we could carry. The essential radio equipment, enough food and water for 3 days, weapons for protection and medical supplies. Everything else, all those carefully stockpiled resources, we had to leave behind. Years of preparation abandoned in hours. Elaine carried Maya when the child grew too tired to walk. I carried the radio equipment, heavy on my back, slowing me down, making me vulnerable. Several times I considered abandoning it. But information is survival now. Communication is power. I couldn't let go of the one thing that might still connect isolated survivors. The journey to the high school should have taken 40 minutes in the old world. It took us 6 hours, moving carefully through darkened streets, hiding whenever we heard voices or movement, taking detours around areas where fires burned or where we spotted armed groups. Los Angeles has been transformed. The familiar landmarks remain, but their meaning has changed. The corner cafe where I used to get coffee isn't a place of comfort anymore. It's a potential ambush point, its broken windows and dark interior hiding unknown threats. The park where people once walked dogs and played frisbee is now an encampment. Tents and makeshift shelters housing those displaced from homes that became indefensible. We arrived at Jefferson High School just before dawn. The community center Curtis described is both more and less than I expected. More organized. They have a perimeter watch, rationing systems, a crude medical clinic set up in what was once the nurse's office. Less secure than I'd hoped. The walls are mostly makeshift barricades, chain link fencing reinforced with debris. Defensible, but not impenetrable. They searched us at the entrance. Standard procedure, they said. Looking for weapons, which they register but allow you to keep. Checking for bites or signs of illness. Assessing what skills or supplies you bring to the community. When they saw my radio equipment, they immediately brought me to their leadership council. The council consists of 7 people who couldn't have been more different in the old world. A former principal of the school, a retired Marine Corps colonel, a doctor who specialized in emergency medicine, a plumber, a woman who managed a large grocery store, a former gang leader who brought his people into the community's defense force, and a 19-year-old engineering student who's been working on restoring some limited electrical capabilities, using salvaged solar panels. They set me up in what was once a chemistry classroom. The student, Zach, helped me assemble my equipment, connecting it to their rudimentary power system. I made my first broadcast from here yesterday, announcing our new location, describing the community for anyone who might be seeking refuge. There are nearly 300 people here now. Families, individuals, elderly, children. Everyone has a role, a responsibility. Some tend the gardens they've planted on the athletic fields. Others stand watch or venture out on scavenging missions. Some teach the children, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in education, not out of some naive belief that they'll need algebra in this new world, but because routine and purpose keep despair at bay. Elaine has joined the medical team. Her experience as a nurse has made her invaluable. Maya has found other children, and sometimes I hear them laughing as they play games that require no electricity, no batteries, nothing but imagination. The resilience of children is both heartbreaking and inspiring. As for me, I've become the communications hub. 2 broadcasts daily, sharing information, connecting scattered groups, spreading word of resources or dangers. Other radio operators have made contact, a group in Pasadena, another in Long Beach, individual operators in various neighborhoods. We're building a network, slowly, fragile as spider silk but growing stronger with each connection. Yesterday, we received word from a ham radio operator with military connections. He's been in sporadic contact with a naval vessel off the coast. The information is fragmented, but what we've pieced together paints a grim national picture. The EMP attack wasn't just aimed at California. It covered most of the continental United States. The East Coast was hit hardest, with additional attacks that went beyond the electromagnetic. The federal government is in disarray. Continuity of government protocols are in effect, but with communication so severely limited, central authority has fractured. Military units operate largely autonomously, trying to maintain order in their immediate areas, with severely limited resources. Some have gone dark entirely, their fate unknown. China has denied responsibility for the attack, Russia as well, but in the chaos, definitive attribution is impossible and ultimately meaningless to those of us just trying to survive another day. International aid is supposedly en route, but with ports non-functional and air traffic impossible, delivery mechanisms remain unclear. The naval vessels offshore are rationing their own supplies, unable to produce more without functioning supply chains. The timeline for any kind of recovery or restoration, no one knows. The damage is too extensive, too fundamental to our infrastructure. This isn't a hurricane or earthquake where unaffected regions can send help. The entire system has been reset. That's the macro view, for what it's worth. Here on the ground, our concerns are more immediate. Water is becoming a critical issue as municipal systems fail completely. We've organized collection teams who venture to the reservoirs, bringing back what they can carry, but it's not sustainable. Food supplies from scavenging will be exhausted soon. The gardens won't produce meaningful calories for weeks, and medical supplies are dwindling with no way to manufacture more. The council has been debating sending an expedition team to the mountains to establish a secondary location with better access to fresh water and game for hunting. Half would stay here, half would go, a hedge against disaster striking either location. I've volunteered to go if they decide it's necessary. My broadcasting equipment could create a communications link between the two groups. There have been increasing tensions within our community as resources grow scarcer, arguments over rationing, accusations of hoarding or preferential treatment. The council does its best to mediate, to maintain fairness and transparency, but fear makes people irrational. Hunger makes them desperate. 2 nights ago, someone tried to break into the supply room. The watch caught him, a father of 3 who had been giving his own rations to his children. They didn't punish him, not formally, but there was a community meeting afterward, where the reality of our situation was laid bare. If we don't hold together, if we turn on each other, none of us survives. It was a sobering moment. The man wept openly as he apologized. Others stepped forward, offering portions of their own rations to his family. In the midst of breakdown, small moments of humanity persist. I cling to these as evidence that we haven't lost everything that matters. The most disturbing development has been the emergence of what I can only call warlords in the wider city. The collectors are just one such group. There are others, controlling territories, exacting tribute from smaller communities in exchange for protection, operating with brutal efficiency. A scavenging party returned yesterday with stories of public executions in what was once MacArthur Park. Examples made of those who defied the new authorities. Medieval justice in the ruins of a modern city. They're moving outward, these groups, consolidating power, eliminating resistance. It's only a matter of time before they turn their attention to larger communities like ours. The council knows this. That's why the mountain expedition has taken on new urgency, not just for resources, but as a fallback position should our defenses here fail. I find myself thinking often about what defines civilization. Is it our technology, our institutions, our laws, or is it something more fundamental? Our capacity to put collective welfare above individual gain, to see beyond immediate survival to longer-term flourishing. By that measure, what's happening here at Jefferson High is civilization rebuilding itself from first principles, while what's happening in those controlled territories is its antithesis. Wait, there's commotion outside. I need to see what's happening. I'm back. That was, I don't know what to call it. A miracle, a cruel joke. Both, perhaps. A military helicopter landed on the athletic field 20 minutes ago. Actual functioning aircraft, when we thought everything that flew was permanently grounded. The explanation came quickly. It's an older model, analog systems, specially shielded against EMP as part of military contingency planning. There aren't many of them operational, but they've been conducting reconnaissance and establishing contact with survivor communities. The pilot and crew confirmed much of what we already knew about the national situation. But they brought something else: information about a secure zone being established in the Central Valley, where limited power has been restored through hydroelectric dams that were minimally affected by the pulse. Primitive manufacturing is restarting. Medical facilities are operational. Food production continues on farms using older equipment and manual labor. They're evacuating key personnel, doctors, engineers, anyone with skills critical to rebuilding. They have room for 20 people from our community on this transport. The council is meeting now to determine who goes. Elaine will go. Her medical skills are too valuable. Maya with her, of course. They've asked me to go as well, to help establish a broader communication network, to bring communities into contact with each other and with what remains of central authority. But I'm torn. Going means a chance at something closer to the life we knew before. Safety, regular meals, purpose beyond daily survival. But it also means leaving behind hundreds of people who have come to rely on these broadcasts, who find some small comfort in knowing they're not alone in the darkness. The council has given me an hour to decide. This transmission may truly be my last from Los Angeles. One way or another, either I leave with the helicopter, or soon enough, the expanding territories of these emerging warlords will reach our community. The military made it clear. This might be the only extraction they can manage for our area. Resources are too limited for repeated operations. So what do I do? What would you do? If you're out there listening, leave, taking key skills where they can do the most good for the most people. Or stay, standing with those who have no special value to the rebuilding efforts, who will be left to fend for themselves in a city growing more dangerous by the day. I've spent my career talking, filling airtime with words, opinions, banter. Now, when it matters most, I find myself speechless, the weight of the decision crushing. I keep thinking about something my father told me years ago, when I was considering leaving radio for a more lucrative job in advertising. He said, "Your voice reaches people in their most private moments, their cars, their homes, their solitary commutes. That's a sacred trust. Don't abandon it for something that matters less." Does that principle still apply? Is my duty to the listeners who might still be out there? Or is it to the larger project of rebuilding, of establishing the communications infrastructure that might eventually reconnect all survivors? I can hear the helicopter rotors still turning. They're keeping the engine running, unwilling to shut down for fear it might not restart. The sound is both foreign and familiar after nearly 2 weeks of a world gone quiet. A reminder of what we've lost, a promise of what might be recovered. For those listening, if this is my final broadcast, please know that you are not forgotten. Whether I go or stay, I carry the knowledge of you with me. Solitary listeners in darkened rooms, families gathered around salvaged radios, communities using my words as a thin thread of connection to a wider world. You exist. You matter. Your struggle is witnessed. If I go, I'll work to build something better, something that might eventually reach back to those left behind. If I stay, I'll broadcast until I can't, bearing witness to whatever comes next for this city I've called home. The choice feels impossible, but perhaps that's the nature of this new world. Impossible choices, made day after day, each one determining not just individual fates, but what kind of society emerges from the ashes of the old. The council is returning. My time is up. I must decide. This is Alex Marshall, from what remains of Los Angeles. Whether this is goodbye or merely until next time, remember what I've said in every broadcast. Stay safe. Stay human. Perhaps that's all any of us can aspire to now. Wait, I'm getting word of something approaching from the east. Multiple vehicles. Military grade. How they're operational, I don't. The signal. It's breaking through clearly now. They're saying. It takes a lot of time to create these videos. I would really appreciate your support. All I ask for is a quick like on the video and subscribe. Thank you so much.